Episode 11, and we are the Dr. Tottenham podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Dr. Tottenham. I'm at Ztronch. Tim's at TIMMAH621. Vass is with us. He's at VCOM1. Dan is at Yitbids1. We have a guest, and this is the first time we've had a guest in a while, and we picked a good one. We have Aaron Wolfe with us. Aaron, thank you so much for being with us. Let me before you say hello, just to brag on you a little bit. I think you produced one of the most marvelous podcasts on football, sports. I think you defined your pod is first time, long time. You can find it on just about anywhere that you find podcasts, and it's a beautiful production. It's about sports for people who may not really like sports. So man, whoa! Look what I just caught. My microphone. Aaron, it is great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us, mate.
Thanks for having me, man. It's a total pleasure. I love what you guys do, and glad to be here.
Well, I'm sorry that the circumstances of what happened a few hours ago is what we're going to be having to talk about, but it's great to have you nonetheless. You can find us anywhere that you can find a podcast, Spotify, iTunes, and the like. We have a YouTube channel. Please subscribe and feel free to leave us reviews. So I guess we'll just get right into it. We'll talk about lineups. Tim, start with you. Biggest shock, no Delhi. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the rest of what you thought.
Yeah, I mean, way to steal the thunder. Biggest shock, no Delhi. Seeing that lineup, though, I talked about it last week 2 weeks ago after Manchester United. I really love that trio of Sissoko sitting behind Ndombele and Højbjerg. You see that, and I was excited with that trio being brought out again. I just really like how they play together, and we'll get on to it when we discuss the match, but that was really my main thought from it. Is this is a pretty solid lineup. And of course, you get all giddy seeing Bale on the bench before the match.
Yeah, feels were great today. And I'm going to start with you. You wake up this morning, 7 years ago, we lost the best player that we'd had in modern memory. Today, how did you feel? Did you feel like we were starting something new?
I walked through the morning like in this kind of like haze, right? Like I remember so clearly the feeling of Bale leaving, and that summer, and how it felt like it was going on and on and on, and the saga was just endless, and we were all going through this like slow motion heartbreak car crash thing when he left, and then like for 7 years, for the kind of, it always felt a little cringy to me. Like for 7 years, people would be like, "Oh, what if we bring Bale back?" And it just the kind of thing of like he'll never come back. Like, what are you doing? He'll never come back. And then he comes back, and he's injured. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'm like sort of glad that he's injured, because I'm like, maybe he won't ever actually play, and my heart won't actually be broken all over again or something, But when I all that footage that was being released this past week of him training, and knowing that he was going to most likely be on the bench, I texted my friend this morning, Bale on the bench. He's going to come in for the last 20 minutes. It's going to be amazing, right? And just that the knowledge that it was possible, it just threw me back to this like incredible feeling 7 years ago of knowing that the greatest player on earth wore the Tottenham kit, and then knowing again that he was going to do it, that he was going to be wearing the kit again. And then of course heartbreak all over again.
And hang on real quick on Bale, and I'm going to be the first of many times we deviate from the rundown, and I'll probably yell at Sam for it later, but he gets subbed on. He stands over that free kick. I'm thinking, yes, make fucking magic right here.
It was like it felt like such a scripted moment, right? And then it was literally from like that moment on, everything just went to complete and utter shit. And I hate to say this, like gloriously Spursy manner. I mean, I mentioned this to you guys earlier. I mean, I think Dan, you kind of said the same. I mean, I don't know what else to do but just to laugh, just like. I can't. We've had collapses before, and I don't even know whether you call that a collapse. I mean, I guess ultimately it was, but to do it in the manner and the speed at which we did, on the heels of such a magnificent day, as Aaron was kind of pointing out there. I mean, all right. So let's go back. So let's go back, Tim. Let's go back to No Delhi. Dan, I'll turn it over to you. I mean, your thoughts before the lineup, then when you saw the lineup, and then No Delhi. What were you thinking?
I wasn't that surprised, to be honest. I don't think anyone was really surprised he wasn't playing. not even making the squad again. I think there's an excuse there now that we've got quite a lot of good players and the bench was strong, very strong. It made me sort of think that we're actually quite overstocked with players. I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing, but we've got a lot of forward players now. We know Lo Celso didn't feature today because of injury. Lamela for no injury. Dele. I mean, I don't know what he's going to do when they're all fit. How he's going to squeeze them all on the bench, I have no idea. But the problem with Dele is that I like Dele. He's probably one of my favourite players of the last few years, but he doesn't. When I didn't see him in the squad, wasn't bothered. I wasn't shocked, and I didn't think we'd really miss him. Maybe in hindsight we did, but that shows how far his stock has fallen in a Spurs shirt at the moment, which is sad to see really, because he has, like I say, he's been one of our best players for the past few years. But it is what it is, I suppose. Mourinho's not going to change his mind on him. I think he's going to have a job to get back into the side, especially for the Premier League. Maybe he'll feature in the Europa, but I think this might be a struggle for him this season.
Vass, I mean, we certainly can't blame his exclusion for the end result today. I want to ask you again, how are you feeling this morning when you saw the lineup? And then let's talk about the first 15 minutes of football that we saw today.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it was much anticipated, particularly after the 6-1 drubbing of Manchester United before the international break. So there's lots of talk, and you're just as guilty as everyone else, Sam, about how you got swept up in this emotion about how we're going to win the league. I've even got one of my sons who's usually quite down on Spurs messaging me saying, we're going to win the title, it's written and everything else. And then we go 3-0 up and, getting more messages like, this is amazing, this is what's going to happen. And fucking hell. Sorry, but... those first 15 minutes were just actually amazing, right? You couldn't have gone off to a better start. So the euphoria and the momentum just seemed to have carried on from pre-international break, and everybody's drinking the Kool-Aid, and we're thinking, this is where we're going with this. But then something turned, and I'm sure we'll get onto that. But to answer your question, I was upbeat before the game. I was euphoric after the first 16 minutes, but then we are Spurs.
Yes, this definitely goes down in the category of we is us.
Us.
All right. I mean, so I guess we go with, lots of scapegoats. I guess we can go look for.
We're going into the negative already. It's
I don't
going
know.
there.
That's just it. I mean, I said this to you guys earlier. My head is so screwed up. I feel like I'm in like an alternate universe of just. I mean, I've seen us collapse before. I've seen us do stupid things. I've seen us bottle things, but I just never really would have thought that. I thought we had a lot of that. I thought we had all of that behind us, and I certainly thought we had it behind us at 3-0, and I certainly thought we had it behind us on a day like today. So I'm just trying to think of like what's a rational way to discuss like the most irrational like Spurs moment of my life. I mean, it's perfect we have Aaron on for this. Aaron, I tell you what, I'm gonna deviate from the lineup because I'm gonna ask you, like, after it was all over with, like, what was your first thought?
I mean, I had this moment. I had this moment like early in the game, actually, where, because after the first 15 minutes or so, the game got really boring. Like we were doing nothing. We disappeared from the match. West Ham was the only team really playing, and there was a moment early in the second half where I thought they got to score. West Ham has to score to get us back in this game, actually. And then I had that thought, and I thought, oh, no. That absolutely cannot happen, because if that happens, we will lose this game, or we will at least concede 3. And as it was winding down, and it was like 10 minutes left, I had one of those moments where I was like, well, the narrative is too good, right? Like, clearly this is going to happen. The narrative is too good. We're gonna concede 3 in like whatever it is, 8 minutes, and then I'm gonna have to talk about this on a podcast. Like, here we go. And honestly, my first thought when at the whistle was,
sorry,
like, what do I do now? Like, what? How do I say anything smart at all? It's but then actually the second thought was the interesting thought. The second thought was, man, if this isn't what football is, if this isn't why I love this game, I don't know what is, right? If we were in if we were in West Ham's shoes, and we have been, we would be full of elation. We would be the happiest people on earth. And if you enjoy that, if you love that, if you need that in your life, that the way so many of us do, this cruel, brutal addiction to football. If you need that, then you also have to take this. And then the next game, when we spank the Farmers by 8 goals and Bale has a hat trick or whatever, this will have made that so much sweeter. So that was the second thought. The second thought is better than the first thought. The first thought was just fuck.
Can anyone say that this result was not deserved? Because I think
by
100%.
By West Ham.
No, by all sides, 100%. It was deserved for us to be up those 3-0 those first 16 minutes the way we were playing. 100%. It was deserved. They drew 3-3 the way we were playing for the remaining, 75 minutes of the match. Because, like Aaron alluded to, our intensity went down. It was like a training exercise after we went up 3-0. And we fully deserve to have them put in those 3 goals the way that we were playing for the remainder of that match. And we need to learn from this. Yeah, right. It's seeing out the games, that mentality, it's an issue.
Well, the margins are fine.
It's funny, actually.
Okay, Bass, go on.
Sorry, Sam. It's funny, actually, because I know Tim doesn't like me messaging during the game because he doesn't like me putting negative spins on stuff. He just wants to get to the end of the game and then deal with shit afterwards. And it was funny. He messaged me at half-time when we were 3-0 up and said, it's okay, Bass, I can take your messages today, your in-game messaging. And I sort of refrained from taking him up on that, even though I did see a few negatives. I'm thinking, how can I positively say anything negative now? We're 3-0 up, half-time, whatever. And then as the second half went on, I'm like, I'm not going to message. I'm not going to message. I'm not going to message. Just wait till the end. And then, yeah, it was a bad one.
My bad. I mean, it's my fault for sending that message. I should have known better.
I
shouldn't blame you. Yeah.
Right. What's that one line in Bull Durham? Never fuck with a streak.
I mean, look, I even made the very bad decision. I even made the very bad decision of posting that Michael Jackson eating popcorn gif on Twitter. Like once we went up 3-0, I was like, yeah, Harry Kane popping bubbles. And I posted that gif, and it's like, it's all my fault. I should know better. I should know better. We cannot have nice things. We do not do this.
I thought that thought came in my mind as well. Can't have nice things, can't have nice things. But I mean, I want to go back to a comment that Aaron had made. I mean, the game got kind of boring, but I felt like the game got kind of boring because we were just so controlling it. Like I was just like having like this visual love fest with Ndombele. I just wanted him to have the ball because it was so beautiful watching him. Nobody could really take it from him, and he was bound to do something good with it. And he looked proud, and that's the Spurs. Like that's, I don't know, that's the image that I want to have of this team. And then just to see it just collapse in the manner that it did so quickly is just absolutely shocking.
I have one slight disagreement with that, Sam.
What's that?
At no point did I feel like we were controlling the game.
You didn't think?
I thought that no. There were good moments, and Ndombele was good. I agree. He was quite controlling when he had the ball, I guess, and he had an excellent game. But I just felt that we just kept giving the ball back to West Ham constantly, and whether it was a long pass downfield or whether we were getting too intricate in the final third, we were turning over the ball. And I mean, it's fine for the team to sort of sit back and expect to maybe nick the ball and hit the opposing teams on the counter, because we're quite good at that. But at no point did I actually feel, particularly in the second half, that we were controlling the game.
Interesting, Dan. You're
to
not
control the game. I think you need to control the ball.
Well, I completely agree. Actually, I don't think we ever really controlled it either. I even thought in the first 15 minutes we didn't really control the game, and that sounds stupid because we scored 3 goals in 15 minutes. But I mean, even before our first goal in 45 seconds, it came from West Ham had a bit of a chance to go forward, and then I think Sanchez nearly kicked one in his own net, or Antonio did from a corner. And the fact that Lloris wasn't troubled, I never really thought that we were, well, exactly that, just in control of the game and sorted. I think the start of the second half was the thing for me as well, is because we came out passive and they came out quite heavy in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But we rode that out, and then I thought, once it got to 80 minutes, I thought, all right, fine, we're good now, we're done, we're fine. I even texted my dad saying we're going to go into second, and then 10 minutes later we were fucking 3-3. But no, I agree with that. I don't think the performance was that good. I mean, the goals were good, and I think some of our play was good, and some of the players played well, and Dombele especially, as you say. But yeah, for me, it wasn't a game like the Newcastle game where we controlled it from minute one at all. I think, in fact, nearly the opposite.
Interesting.
All right. So the Brits are fucking miserable right now about all of this, and the Americans are optimistic about it.
Good. And I think, and I don't know whether it was your very first pod that you did way back in 60, or it was your second one. It was the one about sort of, educating people on sort of fanaticism, like how rational people just do completely irrational things, frankly, like what we're doing right now. And I remember you had audio of you starting your car, going to the pub to watch the Chelsea Spurs match on New Year's, which really was like a seminal moment, at least for me, because I felt like that was when we had arrived. That was the 5-2. That was the 5-2, wasn't it?
Yeah. Actually, you're conflating two different moments, but yes, that Chelsea New Year's featured in that pod, and that was like such a moment, and it was such a huge game, and completely for me, a thing about that game was how much hate I felt towards Mourinho.
Yes.
Like how much,
exactly.
like I just remember sitting, I describe it in the pod, but like I watched that game in the Caribbean. I was in the Caribbean for like a friend's like huge like 50th anniversary celebration, and we were like in the sun and in this like beautiful place, and like I was in a tiny room in a hotel with the windows closed and like the lights off, watching this Chelsea game, screaming hate at Mourinho, right. Which is ironic now because I somehow.
I asked you, but I bring this up because I remember the line on your podcast. You made a comment about seeing the smug look on Jose's face.
Yeah.
And I was trying to explain to somebody the other day like why it's been difficult, for some to adopt him, and I said it's not because he's not a great manager. It's because he's just been such a bastard to Spurs over the years. He's just been a consistent winner against us. And we have a question about mentality, and I swear I had it. And Tim, I'm probably going to need you to lead me to it because, like when you have a 3-0 collapse like we had today, right? We're back.
It's probably, Sam, it's probably the one that's bolded and italicized.
I know. I had
under
it.
the header mentality.
I had it. I have a hard time like that. Screen to screen. Read it.
All right, here we go. I'll ask it for you because you can't find it. So we got Huna at Spicy Lima Bean. Do you actually think there has been a shift in mentality? I definitely thought the signs were looking positive, but the last 20 minutes or so, we looked absolutely shaken and lost. Is that the one you were going for, Sam?
That was it. Thank you.
All right.
So, Aaron, I mean, so when you saw that smug look on Jose's face back then, I mean, it was the face of a winner, right? I mean, that was what he was really known for, like really, really mentally strong teams. Yet here we are with an epic collapse. How do we approach the mentality issue when we have the special one?
So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there's been a shift in mentality. I'm not sure if this was a collapse that was a notable collapse or not. And I think this is the kind of thing that we will know looking back at this. We have to right now talk about it. Lots of people have to right now tweet about it and ask questions about it. And so we're going to come up with a lot of reactions to it. We won't know if there's a shift in mentality or if this represents an aberration or the norm for this team until looking back at it months from now. Mm-hmm. I think that this is a compounding problem that is really hard to tease apart, right? Like mentality wise, yes, when you look at like collapses, you look at things like mentality, but I think back to like the days in which we consistently collapsed in the last 4 or 5 minutes of a game, and we would consistently have these problems. Right now we have a leaky defense, and we consistently have a leaky defense, but this was a really epic collapse that was also symptomatic of a whole host of problems, right? Like, first of all, well, I think we'll talk about it, but Sanchez playing on the left side of the central defense, he looked incredibly shaky. So we give up a first goal from the left side of the defense. He then puts in an own goal from the left side of defense, and then there's this wonder strike, right? Like, is that a mentality, or is that just like the kind of aberrations that happen in football that make us nuts? I really truly don't know. The other compounding thing about this is that you see this all throughout the league where teams are giving up massive amounts of goals, and people have been talking about the lack of fans in the crowds and whether that is making an impact. I always honestly thought that was bullshit. Today, you could kind of see shades of it. You could see how there was nothing to kick us into another gear. There was nothing to like sort of get us focused in that last little bit except for ourselves. That may point to a weak mentality. That may just point to how unbelievably difficult it must be to play football in this moment, if you're professional or not. I'm not sure if I answered your question very well.
No,
that is.
I think you did. I think I think really what you're saying is we get so caught up in the moment that we sort of lose sight of the big picture, and losing or gaining mentality doesn't happen necessarily in an instance. It's a process, and it's a culmination of things.
I mean, so just to follow on that, the 6-1 is much more of a symbol to me of the mentality. The first 15 minutes is a symbol of mentality. That is cutthroat football. That is unbelievable finishing and unbelievable, just unrelenting football. With after playing tons and tons and tons of games in a row, I'm much more interested in looking at that than this. This is the one that we're going to look at because it's noisy and because it just happened. But I think in the long run, we're going to look back at those other games much more than we're going to look at this one. I hope, right?
Yeah, I'm hopeful. You're right. We all are. I mean, there were key substitutions, and I don't know whether that was what sort of reset the tone. We took out Tanguy. We put in Winks. I mean, how much of a defining moment was that, Dan, if it was at all?
Well, it looks like a. Go on, Timmy.
Credit to the question. Come on, Sam. Peter at PK6512. Is it a coincidence that when Ndombele went off and Winks came on, that the whole game changed? So there you go, Dan.
To be honest, maybe I just completely missed it, and maybe I don't look at the game enough. I didn't notice a shift in terms of because Winks was on because of Ndombele. I noticed a shift because they scored a goal and our legs went to jelly, and especially scoring the second goal so quickly. I know Winks is getting an absolute pacing off people today for not smashing the ball right in the last minute and taking it to Lanzini. I think he's been scapegoated a bit at best. I think he should have absolutely smashed it away. And I think there's questions to ask about his ability to be a first team player, to be a starter, especially in the squad. But I think to blame the game on him today was quite poor. Would be quite poor to suggest. Yes, he's not as good as Ndombele. Not many central midfielders are. It's a bit harsh having to go at him for that. Could have Ndombele stayed on? I don't know. I don't know what his fitness is saying. I think Jose's trying to manage him quite well. But there was more problems than Winks' performance today in that last 10 minutes. I'll pass to Tim. Aurier for the third goal, for the awful tackle that some people say wasn't a foul. Whatever, I don't care. It was a terrible touch, and he shouldn't have given him the opportunity. Yeah, okay, go. There's the big Aurier supporter piping up.
It wasn't a foul. It was just not a foul.
Hang on. Yeah. How much of that though? Like, I'm actually in Vass's camp here, but I keep on playing it over and over again. Should he have been in that situation at all?
No,
and does an experienced player avoid even the thought of having a call in that spot?
Well,
and is that part of the Spursy aura, or is that just
bad touch? It was his bad touch. He should have just touched it and smashed it if he was that bothered. But he touched it, tried to control it, went too far. Snodgrass got in front, and bang, he's taken him down. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to leave to Tim on this because Tim's got a few scapegoats in mind, I think.
I wouldn't put Aurier as a scapegoat. I do agree, though, Dan, it was a poor touch. He shouldn't have been in that situation. But overall, I'll say that I've been very impressed with Aurier this season, with the way he's bounced back and accepted.
Today.
Yeah, I'm with you, Vess. I mean, I think he's had a good game when he's played. He's accepted the challenge of Doherty being brought in and competition at the spot, and that's what you want. And I'm glad we didn't sell him. I'm not going to put it on him, but I mean, yeah, I think I'll jump on the bandwagon with everybody, and you know, Winks needs to clear that. And there was a shift in the midfield when he came on because he doesn't have the same creativity and presence as Ndombele. And the shift really wasn't his fault, but it signaled we're just going to sit back and try and ride this game out. There's 15 minutes left or something like that when he came on, and it was clear. And West Ham took advantage of that, and they pressed us, and they kept pressing us. And Winks was sitting deeper because that's probably the role he was given to play. And they just continued coming at us, and Spursiness at its finest right there. I mean, that's really what it was. But yeah, Winks needs to clear it. We have Ben Basinger at Benny Basinger. Did Winks just lose his place in the squad? Well, I'm not sure he really had a place, at least not in the starting 11. That's the type of talent we've added that I don't think Winks is at that level. Oh shit, here come the airplanes now.
Explain this. No, you have to explain why airplanes are flying over your house.
It's the annual air show this weekend, so I keep muting myself because there are fighter jets that go directly over my house, and they're so loud.
All right, so I want to expand upon Ben Basinger's question. I mean, is that a critical moment? Vass, I'll ask you this: is that a critical moment for Winks? Is that going to linger long in Jose's memory, fairly or unfairly?
Listen, I don't think it will, because even though I turned the TV off after the game, I put it on the NFL, but I couldn't resist but go back to see if I caught any of the post-match, analysis. And I just caught Jose saying that he thought that when Winks came on, we had a different energy and we started to control things. So I don't think he's lost his place in the squad. I think Mourinho still rates him, and he will be a squad player for us. But it's very easy post-game for people to scapegoat the usual suspects, and the usual suspects are Aurier and Winks and Sanchez. When really there was a catalogue of individual errors that preceded all of the goals. The first goal,
Aurier, Winks, and
Sissoko. Well, no, no.
I was about to say that.
I mean, Gareth Bale missed a sitter. Okay, he missed a sitter.
You watch your mouth right now. You do
Aaron,
not talk about Gareth like that.
Aaron, how poetic would that have been?
It would have been very poetic, but boy, did he beef that shot. I mean, that was ridiculous.
He did.
Yeah. How did he miss that?
Did any of us think at that moment that he would miss there?
Like, it was written for him to miss that, right?
I thought it was written for him to make it, and that's what bothers me, right? Like, am I really reading into this? But like, to me, that would just been like the perfect Hollywood script, The prodigal son comes home and he puts it away, and and he basically ends the game, and then no, it was almost literally from that moment on, it was just like watching, the wheels of the bus just come flying off, right?
Well, two things that I noticed right after that. First of all, he was blowing. He looked so exhausted. And that was 10 minutes into his appearance. Yes. He looked just gone. And then the other thing is that right around then, Lucas came on, right? And I believe, was it like he had the last 10 minutes with Lucas, no? Anyway.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Something about that also, to me, spelled a little bit of doom. I kind of agree with Vass that there was a confluence of mistakes, there was a confluence of problems, but for me, when I looked at the shape of the team once Lucas came on, and actually a little bit when Winks came on, Ndombele occupies this incredible spot linking the midfield and the attack, and he always does, and he's always attacking that space, and it's how we control the game, and it was how. Even when we weren't controlling the game after those first 15 minutes, I felt safe around it because he was there. And when Winks came on, we no longer occupied that space in the midfield. And then Lucas comes on, and we're just completely giving that up. And to me, I don't have a very sophisticated tactical eye, but to me, that was just like, it's over.
Yeah.
We are conceding the ball, and when we concede the ball completely, we look so scared at defense.
Yeah, Aaron makes valid points there, and to just linger on this issue of blaming players and who was at fault. I mean, even for their third goal, yes, Aurier took a poor touch and maybe should have cleared it, and we conceded a soft free kick. But we had 11 men back there defending that free kick. You know, we should have dealt with it. And then for their second goal, we had actually Reguilon and Lucas on that left side. So poor. Let the guy just get in to make a free cross on his own that Sanchez headed into his own goal. I mean, it was just a catalogue of errors that contributed to this defeat. And the first goal, Sissoko didn't even jump with his guy. The man had a free header, you know. And it's whenever you allow a team possession, prolonged possession, you allow them to build up a head of steam. So in that situation, you have to work harder. But I don't think we worked hard enough because we thought the game was won from the 16th minute. And that's what let us down today. And we should never let a team that is losing 2-0 or 3-0 to even get that first goal, because it's that first goal that's going to lift them and spur them on.
Totally agree.
The absence of a crowd as well. But yeah,
I want to continue on there because, like, in All or Nothing, right? A lot of halftime speeches, you see Jose saying, "Look, the victory here is to not give up a goal," right? And I think you absolutely nailed it there. At 3-0 up, the most important thing to do at the very least is to not allow them to score. So my question to you is this: are you back having worries again that we're not going to be able to hold leads and this is going to continue to be a problem?
I'd hope today was a lesson. And as I mentioned earlier about euphoria and momentum, and that continued during the first period of play in today's game, I think the second half and what happened in the last 8, 10, 15 minutes will be a lesson to them. And I'm hoping that will be the case. The sad thing is, though, we've had 3 games at home and 2 games away. And of a possible 9 points from home, we've picked up 2. That's hurtful.
Yeah, that's clearly not good. I want to recognize a load of folks for asking questions about Winks. Some first-time questions from Ben Basinger and Cody Early at Cody Early, and then we had loads of others. Cherry of Destiny at Cannot Cope. At W Adams 2020, at JKVT, at Coys YYZ, at Chef Pozzesco, and at Who is Adam Shaw with 2 W's. Aaron actually brought this up, and I'll leave this up to the 3 because Dan had to shift off there for just a second. But why? Oh, here he's back. Why was Davison a left-sided center back today? Anybody have a reason for that?
I saw on Twitter somebody suggest, and I wish I remember who it was. Somebody suggested that Jose might be making that choice to preserve Toby's kind of big switching, sweeping balls, and it's harder for him to make that pass from the left side, and it's easier for him to make it on the right side. It also could be Toby's legs are aging. Obviously, he might be more comfortable playing on the right. It just that was evident to me from the very beginning that Davinson on the left looked uncomfortable, and I think we've seen him play there before, and he's looked uncomfortable before. Yeah,
that's a good shout.
Yeah. I think if sorry, there's no point Toby playing left and Sanchez right, because I think that would be moving two places rather than one, if that makes sense. It was always Toby right, Vertonghen left up until last year. So keep Toby where he is, and Sanchez, the replacement, comes in for the left-sided player. It's just the way it is, I guess.
Yep, understood. I found myself I don't know, around 80 minutes, begging for Kane to come off. The game was won. I was clearly wrong. But we had an interesting question from Zach. He is at Raider, RADER _ZZ. He says, I know it's easy to Monday quarterback. Why not let Son play 90? Playing Son against West Ham and Newcastle has resulted in, or excuse me, pulling Son against West Ham and Newcastle has resulted in a draw. Coincidence or poor substitution, Tim?
I look, that's so easy, the Monday morning quarterback on this one, because at that time you agree, yeah, preserve some. We're up 3-0, 10 minutes left. So I don't have a problem with the sub when it happened. And I don't know how you can say you have a problem with that. Just seeing how reliant we're going to be on Sonny, how instrumental he is with us. I was with you, Sam. I was thinking sub off Son, sub off Kane. Take them both off.
Yeah,
And
I thought that
because I mean it's 10 minutes left and you're up by 3 fucking goals. Like, what do you expect to happen? Nobody expects them to put in 3 goals in 10 minutes. And this is very much like Jose's first match in charge of us when we played West Ham.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we
were
went up
3-0.
really early, and it was the last few minutes of the game where they almost came back and got a result from us. They only put in 2, I guess, and we won that one 3-2, but it was very similar to that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I remember them talking about
And
that.
so real quick on it, I think I'm going to say for Zach's question, I think it's a coincidence in this situation. I don't think Son being pulled off resulted in that draw. I don't think it was a poor substitution when it happens at 80th minute and you bring off one of your top players to give him some rest and to make sure, he doesn't get injured. So I'm saying it's a coincidence in this situation.
No, fair enough. And you kind of touched on this earlier, but it is a good question, and I think we're worth asking from James Colton Kelly. He's at Colton_Kelly _24. As angry as everyone can be, it took an own goal and a goal of the season contender. Are we overreacting emotionally? He says, I'll answer for everyone, yes. Is that fair for him to do that?
We are overreacting emotionally, but that's because we're football fans and that's what we do. And also it was an epic collapse, right? Like it's both. It's both things. Like I'm sure the next couple of days are going to be really unpleasant. Jose is going to have a lot to say about what went wrong. And also I think we're overreacting. I think like as a fan base, we're probably freaking out unnecessarily a little bit.
What makes it worse, though,
happens with football, though, isn't it?
Yeah. What makes it worse is fucking West Ham as well, because I have a go at them all year, take the piss out of them, and they always end up fucking not getting relegated and then fucking beating us at home. And it's really annoying. I've got a few West Ham mates, and they'll probably be watching this tomorrow fucking morning and just laughing at me for the whole 60 minutes. They've given me about 50 messages already. Honestly, they're bastards. Fuck them.
You can tell Stan's wound up. He just got an F-bomb tirade there.
Sorry.
Sweet innocent Dan, right? But no, I mean, the 3-0 up, your mind wanders, right? Like, I thought we were cruising, and I start thinking about, my mind starts racing, and I'm like, why do they fucking hate us so much? Like, why do they hate us so much? And I was sure thinking of, like, other, like, maybe U.S. sports team analogies where, a bigger club or a bigger competitor, they're a pain in our, the American phrase, they're a pain in our ass. I mean, they really are. But I gotta hand it to Jose today. He didn't. Whereas in some spots in the past, in press conferences where he was in a similar situation or a situation like that, I thought he was really calm, and I thought he handed it to West Ham straight off the bat. He said for them to stay in this match, right, for as long as they essentially had to. He was impressed by that, and I thought that was kind of pretty classy. But I thought about all the times we've done them in the end, and I just figured, well, this is just variance, and it just evens out sometimes. And the football gods wanted them to have their day, so here we are. Where do we go from here? Let's talk about Aaron, Vass. Let's talk about Aaron Wolfe.
Let's talk about Aaron.
What?
Yeah.
You have the floor. You started off. What do you want to ask?
Aaron, I've known Aaron off the back of Twitter, essentially, for a while now. And then he started producing these podcasts, first time, long time. And if our listeners have not looked them up, go find them, listen to them, because they are amazing. Aaron is a first-rate storyteller. He puts together a professional show. Sorry, I don't know what your background is, Aaron. Maybe you are in that sphere anyway. But the First Time Long Time podcasts, they deal with the subplots around sport. And Sam mentioned earlier that they are podcasts for not necessarily sports fans, but you've dealt with some really great issues, Aaron, over the 3 series that you've done. You've dealt with things about, the emotions surrounding sports, the sounds surrounding sports, the fandom around sports. I know the latest series is about looking at the last games of certain sports just pre-lockdown, which was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to go back to one from the first series, and I think it was it episode 2?
Yeah,
Yeah, the fan episode
Yeah.
2. Yeah, it was. You said you dove into the machinery of fandom and fanaticism and explore how a guy from New York could become obsessed with a team from London, a place he'd never been. And that was a Spurs fan. And I remember listening to that, and I was utterly amazed that you tracked down this guy who had all these newspaper clippings down in his basement or whatever. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, that one. That's interesting. That dude came up actually in a different episode. That dude came up in the episode, the Time Machine episode, which was about watching sports.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's a guy from Boston Spurs who his name now escapes me, but he became a fan of Tottenham in like the 70s, and his friends from London would send him newspapers with the results of the week's games, and he would get the games like a week later, and he would open up the newspaper and experience the kind of thrill of victory or like the heartbreak of defeat. He'd experience it a week after everybody else in the world had experienced it. And that was the only way. This is all pre-satellite TV and all of that, right? It's the only way he could follow the team. And it was really wild to meet him in this pub in Boston, where we were just sort of standing there watching a North London derby together, to know that this guy's fandom had stretched back to days in which he would literally just be able to look at, a paragraph of a result and experience the kind of thrill that we experience now just by turning on our TVs. That was pretty amazing. The story of how I tracked him down, I won't give it away. You have to listen to the Time Machine. It's in the first season, because it's an interesting story. But yeah, that was always fascinating, that guy. The New Yorker who had never been to London was me. That was that.
Oh, was that you? Sorry, I mixed up the episodes. Yeah, sorry
That's
about
fine.
that. Yeah. So, yeah, no. But then there's some of the other episodes, and I found myself getting intrigued by summer camps and knock hockey, which are, in the UK wouldn't have a clue what that is, but that was fascinating. And then the radio broadcast, you did one episode that concentrated on how people followed sports through radio, and it really was. I thoroughly enjoy your shows, and I really do recommend everyone to
Thank you.
to go listen.
Yeah, one of your very early ones deals with like your journey to become Spurs, and I want people to listen to that episode. But without giving that episode away, at least the beginning of that episode, tell us a little bit about your union with Tottenham.
Yeah, I mean the really short story, the long story is on the podcast. The short story is that down the block from where I lived in Brooklyn before I moved up to Boston, down the block was there were 2 pubs. There was an Arsenal pub to the left and a Spurs pub directly to the right. Like they were literally next door to each other. And I used to go. The Arsenal pub was the only one that was open during weekdays, and I was a freelancer, and I used to go to the Arsenal pub to watch Champions League matches. I was like a football fan. I didn't know really anything. I just watched anything that I could get my hands on. I would watch, and I watched this young player named Gareth Bale ordered a taxi for Micon, and I was like, what is this team and what is happening and why don't I know about this? And like all my friends want to play Barca on FIFA, but like, what is this thing going on? And this guy was like, yeah, on Saturday you should come next door because that's where that guy actually plays. He plays on Tottenham. And a friend, Adam, dragged me basically against my will, literally. I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm not waking up at 7:30 in the morning to go watch football. But he dragged me there. And the minute I walked in, I knew I was home. And that's the short story. The long story is a lot more complicated. But yeah.
The long story is on the pod. Yeah. And we encourage everyone to do it because it's just your storytelling is just so visceral and it's just so relatable. And I think anybody who listens to it, who has a love for Spurs like we all do, is going to be able to take bits and pieces of your story. I think in your recent pod, you talked about singing and song and how that's such an important part of us being supporters. And I never really stopped to really think about that. And I tell people all the time about like the biggest thing about the difference between like English football and American sports is just the organic nature of how things get created, particularly in the stadium. And I didn't know this, but I think one of your first matches, or certainly a match that you went to, was Spurs Villa, and Brad Guzan was in goal for Villa, and they sang a song saying, "Oh, you're just a shit Brad Friedel, a shit Brad Friedel," and I thought, oh, that's really funny. I never knew that we sang that to him. But years ago, and I hadn't been back to White Hart Lane in ages, and it must have been 10 years since I've been back. And I went to Spurs Liverpool. And remember when Liverpool's manager was Gerard Houllier, and he had that heart condition. And there was maybe a month period of time where he wasn't manager, he was getting better. And it was Phil Thompson was their caretaker manager. Well, Phil Thompson's got a big nose, right? And I mean, early in third, fourth, or fifth minute, he gets up on the touchline, and out of nowhere, the entire shelf side and I think Park Lane as well were in on this, and they start singing "Sit Down Pinocchio, Sit Down Pinocchio," and then when he sits, everybody starts clapping. I don't really know how to describe like how that gets done, right? But that's English football, and that's the character that Spurs supporters have, and that's just
This last episode is all about that emergence, like how songs happen. I talked to an ethnomusicologist who studies the Bundesliga and ultra culture, and he talks about the capos and fan-led singing. And then we talked to two guys from the Fighting Cock who talk about that the difference between the English. Am I allowed to mention another podcast on Dr. Tottenham, by the way?
No, that's fine. We're all friends with a fight.
Yeah, and
Vass does it all the time.
But we dive real deep into that.
She is too.
And then actually I have a little mini plug. I have a excuse me. I have a mini episode, a very special episode that's coming out next week. That's something that didn't fit into this most previous episode, specifically about one song, specifically a Spurs song that was written in the forums of the Fighting Cock, and the story of how that song kind of emerged and the meaning that it has for Tottenham fans. So that'll be coming out next week, which I'm really, really excited to share.
I'll tell you, I listened to it. I went on a run after this match, and so I listened to it then. I literally got goosebumps during one moment in the pod while you played the fans singing. I literally got goosebumps like 3.5 miles into my run, and I'm just busting out in goosebumps listening to it.
Yeah. Did you think, Tim, about what your favorite song is? I did. What was yours?
I don't know. I don't know if I really have a favorite song.
I think when on the pod when they did "Oh When the Spurs," it just kind of came like. It just kind of came back to me, and then we are Tottenham, super Tottenham.
That's the one. Yeah. So for me, I thought I understood it. Being American, following this game, I thought I understood it, and I didn't. Listening to that pod, it helped me have a greater understanding of it. I will tell you and I'm not ashamed to say this, the part I broke out in goosebumps was when you're talking about the "We'll Never Walk Alone."
Yeah.
And it's the whole story behind it. I had no clue on any of that. And just listening to their fans sing that, I literally broke out in goosebumps while running.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, part of that episode is all about what I call the single greatest. I don't think I'm alone in saying this. It's the single greatest football song in the world. "You'll Never Walk Alone." The story of that is really special, and what it means to Liverpool supporters. But yeah, I get goosebumps at that part of the story as well. It's a good song, and Flav from the Fighting Cock has a great line where he just says he hates that it's a Liverpool song. It's such a good fucking song, but he hates that it's
It's more
theirs.
as a result, right?
It hurts.
It's
It hurts
true.
that it's theirs. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. No, it's a fantastic episode. Can't encourage people enough to read it. You're an incredible storyteller. You really are. All right. Where do we go to now? I mean, here's what sucks, Tim. We had a really good transfer window. Like, everything was like, we were on the heels of a great transfer window. Got a great cross from, our young Spanish left back. And Dombele's bossing around. Højbjerg looks like the king of the midfield. And we got 7 new players. I thought we had a good window.
We had an amazing window. It's best window I can remember under Levy, and it's not because we spent a lot of money, but it's because we went out and we addressed it, and we made sure at every position now there is competition. We don't have any position in the squad where a player does not have someone pushing them to compete and get better.
Yeah, I would agree. Vash, you concur? You happy with the window?
Yeah, very happy with the window. I don't think we can complain. We needed a centre back to top it all off, and I think we got one this week. Well, I know we got one this week. But we got it from the Championship, Swansea, and not from Inter Milan. So I don't know if that's going to make a difference. Hopefully, he will be able to come in and make a difference for us. But yeah, it's been an excellent window. Hope that these players gel. Vinicius was on the bench today, so we'll see what he's like. But of course, it'll be easier to blood these players if we are killing off games like today's. And then they'll be able to play without any pressure. If you don't kill off games, then the pressure to win the subsequent game becomes greater, and then you don't know if you're able to drop your tried and trusted. But it was a great window, absolutely.
Yeah,
Sam, let me ask you this, Sam, because I'm gonna direct your question to you, and it's purely speculation, and there's probably a lot of forces at work on this. But what do you think is the most dominating force between Levy making these moves now and not under Pochettino? Is it him finally backing the manager he always wanted? Is it Pochettino was not willing to accept alternatives and he said it's this player or nobody? Is it the stadium's done? Is it the government loan? What do you think is the most prevailing factor in Levy now doing this?
Yeah, no, it's such a great question, and it's one that I've been thinking about so much since the window, and I think it's a combination of many of the things, if not all, that you've mentioned. I think the first thing. And I don't know whether I'm just reading into what little I saw in All or Nothing, but you could just, to steal a Vasconi phrase, Poch's body language in press conferences, like that connection seemed to have changed between him and Levy. Things were going downhill. I mean, easy to say now in retrospect that obviously you have the benefit, you have the known fact that he's been let go, and then you've got a little bit of All or Nothing. So I wonder whether that was the beginning of it. That's maybe where Levy is asking himself, is he really the guy after I get the stadium done to fully back? I would have thought that he had shown enough prior to that to be that guy, and with everything that we dealt with, particularly Champions League, that would be his excuse as an extraordinary time, but evidently not. So I think.
I mean, he did splash cash though when Poch was still here, and Dombele.
Sure.
Sessegnon started the Lo Celso one.
Sure.
But we're not seeing, the...
Well, you had a terrible run. The nail in the coffin was the terrible run of results that we had on the heels of spending the money that you mentioned. But then I also think it was timing. I think that there was a window of opportunity, to your point, to get the manager that I think he's always wanted to have in the back of his mind, that now that the time was right. And yes, the stadium is done. And hopefully there's a path for all of our lives where we don't have a pandemic, and he can see the commercial revenues coming back, and now is the time to strike. I mean, I think it's a combination of things, and I think the situation somewhat fell into his lap. had we not gone on the terrible run that we did, I'd argue that Pochettino would likely be here, and maybe he would be supported, further versus last window, on top of last window.
Or Sam, do you think Levy's getting a little too much credit on this, and is it due to the shakeup in our football operations and Trevor Birch coming in? Because that's when a lot of these moves started happening, is after that appointment.
No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think the buck stops with him. I mean, I don't think that he went into this season discovering that he needed players by hiring Trevor Birch, and the likes of Trevor Birch. I think this has been in the cards. I think there was a time where Pochettino was going to be that manager that was going to be backed, and it just the circumstances just didn't unfold to where it worked out.
Yeah. One thing that's interesting about the window is that, like, obviously Bale, Reguilon is those are massive names, and those were really at least to me surprising transfers. But like Højbjerg and Doherty and Vinicius and Joe Hart, I mean, like those are solid players. Joe Hart maybe, I don't know, but the rest of those are solid players that are not. They're not like, they don't feel like luxury players, right? They feel kind of like really smart, sensible buys. They're kind of, they're almost in that model of a Levy buy. It's just surprising to have this kind of sensible window, and then on top of that have these kind of unbelievable buys that or pieces of business, the loan and the purchase that feel so exciting. So I wonder. I mean, because I think you're right. There have been a lot of really big windows. Ndombele and Lo Celso were huge coming in. It's just that they didn't pan out in that window as much as we had hoped. But this window feels really different. It just feels smart and directed, and like it's part of a rebuild as opposed to just like plugging holes. It feels like we're in the rebuild.
I think that's an outstanding point, because I think that you could argue that when we sold Bale, Tim, we just needed to buy players, right? Just to show that we were. This is different. So I think that whereas the plan, as kind of Aaron points out, was probably already in place, now we've got good people around Levy to make sure that if we are going to be ambitious, that there's a coherent plan of ambition, if you will. So, all right, talking about daring to dream. I don't know whether
hold on. We got to talk about our new signing real quick. You can't forget Vass's YouTube scouting report. Give us the lowdown, Vass.
Oh, of course. Joe Rodon.
I didn't see much on there, to be perfectly honest, guys. I saw some brief highlights on Rodon. He looks okay. I don't know if he's better than what we've got. I'm hoping he certainly will be, but time will tell. I'm gonna have to what's the word? Just flake out on this one, sadly.
Here's what I say is, if you have a center back and you're not getting a bunch of video footage of them, that means they're not fucking up a lot.
Or maybe he just doesn't score too many goals.
Top 50 Rodon own goals set to some techno track I've never heard of. That's like exactly YouTube playlist.
Whenever I try to look for defenders on YouTube, they're always up the other end scoring goals. I don't see the point of that. I want to see how they defend, to be perfectly honest.
I did either hear something or read something that he's kind of a big guy, but he has kind of John Stones like qualities. Like he can be physical, but he can also play the ball out from the back as well. So I don't know.
The good thing about him is that he's a right-footed centre-back, but he prefers to play on that left side of the centre-back pairing.
That's interesting.
So that immediately addresses a need, because we saw today Sanchez couldn't really play there with any great confidence. Toby doesn't like playing on the left because, as Aaron mentioned earlier, we like to use Toby to spray the long passes off his right foot. Dyer, again, is a right-footed player, although he has been playing on the left when he's been paired with Sanchez. So perhaps we've got a solution for that left-sided centre-back. But in terms of his quality as a defender, look, he's a Welsh international. Gareth Bale and Ben Davies obviously vouched for him. So, yeah, we'll see how it all pans out.
Interesting that you mentioned that, Vash. We've talked a lot about sort of, harping on defenders. Of all of our defenders, we only have one that's not a full international, and he's arguably, one of the brightest talents we have, which is Japhet Tanganga. Every one of our defenders is a full international. So, I mean, look, we're on the heels of. If this international break is coming at a great time, right? It's allowed me to like binge watch things like the playbook, watch more episodes of All or Nothing, watch these players go out on international break and do pretty well and come back feeling really, really, really good about Spurs. Spurs were 16-1 the other day to win the title, which I thought about. I looked at the squad. I try to be objective. Obviously, I got Spursy glasses on. I thought, there's some value in that. I've never bet on Spurs to ever win the league, and I thought I'm going to go ahead and do that. When Virgil van Dijk last night or yesterday busted his ACL, he's going to be out for the rest of the season. Our odds went to 11-1. Now, I haven't looked today. My sense is they'll bounce back up. And I'll just say this. If they're still around 14-1 or wider, I'm going to make that bet. I actually think there's some value there. So we have a section on Dare to Dream. I'll start with you, Aaron. What are you thinking about Spurs as you see them now, and what are your expectations?
Okay, I am like strap in your rose-tinted glasses because like it's about to get very happy clapper over here. I think those first 15 minutes and the way we played against United and the way we have kind of scythed through the Europa League competition up to this point. I think we could go really, 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 really deep in cup competitions. It's a coin flip, so I don't like predicting like a cup win or whatever. But I think we could win the league. I do. I think that no one else looks very special. I think no one else looks bulletproof. I think every team is flawed right now. Every team is struggling in the new strange reality, and I think that our attack looks so unbelievable, just consistently so unbelievably dangerous that like fuck it, like go in early. Yes, we could win the league, and I completely feel unchanged by today's result in that sort of positivity. Bookmark that moment in the pod to play back at me when when we are in a relegation dogfight or whatever. But like that, I truly think if you don't enjoy today's result aside, if you don't enjoy the kind of play that we have been watching the past couple of weeks, if you don't enjoy that and sort of take it in as this is what it feels like to win the league, you'll just miss the whole thing. You'll just suddenly look and it'll be 2 weeks out and you'll be like, oh my God, maybe we're going to do it. I think this team is unbelievable. I think I think I have fully drunken the Mourinho Kool-Aid. I think like there is something here, and I think we could actually do it.
Well, I want to ask both you and Vass, Tim. I'll let you start. We'll end with Vass. I mean, you're a bit of the resident Jose fanboy on the pod. So, I mean, in that and of itself, there's part of your answer. But seriously, I mean, as objectively as you can try to be, what are your thoughts about going forward on the heels of today?
I mean, look, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid with Aaron. I really am, but seeing this window has really changed my thoughts, because going into the season, when the window was still open, before we made some of the signings, I thought, okay, it's going to be a struggle to get top four. I'm hoping we can still make Champions League, but it's going to be a struggle. I think we have a very, very good chance of finishing in the top four now after seeing the squad. And like Aaron was saying, I mean, nobody's running away with it right now. The league is so different this year in this post-COVID environment and how teams are operating. Nobody's going to run away with it, and that's what really does give us a chance. If you're in that top four, I think you're going to have a chance. I think it's going to come down to the last few weeks of this season. My expectations, though, are, I truly believe, I truly do, silverware of some kind, whether it comes through the league, whether it comes through the Europa League, whether it's just a League Cup. I don't know which one it's going to be, but I think we have a very good shot at it because we have increased the ability of the squad so much. You just look at the depth we have on the bench when we're putting it out there. It's insane, the depth you have. You're bringing on Bale as a sub. You know, players that we relied on in the past for years, Winks and Lucas, they're now subs. Dele Alli can't even make the starting lineup. That's how much the squad has improved. And now you bring in a coach like Jose, and I think this is a good segue. And, well, let's pause it for a bit, but I want to get your take on him, Sam, after watching the playbook and Jose. I mean, I think he is the coach in the prime position to take us to that with this squad. I really do. And, you know, maybe today's result is that sort of that catalyst that don't get too comfortable. This is why you really need to give the intensity. And I'm sure what Jose says in the press conference is going to be a lot muted compared to how he rips into these players, because I fully expect him to rip into them for the way that we finish this match.
Vash,
you should do by go on.
No, I was going to
say.
I want to answer Tim's question, but I want to hear from you. I mean, we're going to have a successful season in your mind. You think today changes it, and what your thoughts were going into this match?
Let's just say today was character building. I think what we got now, and I should have bookmarked it actually, but it was in one of our early pods, maybe at the start of this season or the end of the last one, when I said that the team that's going to win the league is the team that defends the best. And so far, there's not been much good defending from anybody, really. I thought Mourinho might drill us into a good defensive unit, and maybe he thought he was onto that at some point, but today proved otherwise. So if we can overcome that, my expectations for this team is, yes, silverware. I'm almost expecting us to win the Europa League. That's the one I've got my heart on. And not only that, is that a great piece of silverware, it now gets you Champions League qualification for the following season, regardless of what happens domestically. But I do see us having a good season in the Premier League. There are one or two teams that have started well so far this season. Everton, top of the league, obviously. Aston Villa just won their 4th game out of 4 so far.
Oh, that's ruin it for me.
Yeah, sorry, mate. I had to throw that one in there.
I don't look at the table until after like week 8, so I have no clue how it's made up, who was at the top, where we sit. I have absolutely no clue. I don't look at it. I don't like to look at it for the first 8 weeks. I think it's meaningless looking at it this early.
All right. Well, I've just busted your dreams up, so apologies for that, Tim. But yeah, no, I do see us winning a trophy. It's got to happen, and the year is ending in one after all, is it not?
There you go, amen.
The season will be.
So, Tim, you mentioned the Netflix documentary or series of interviews with great coaches called the Playbook, and Jose was one of the coaches that was interviewed. And I watched this and I really felt, gosh, I'm really an emotional heel. I mean, we're all emotional beasts, but kind of going back to the comment that Aaron made about Jose, back in 2015 or 16 on that New Year's game, that smug look of Jose's face. I mean, that's governed my view of him, which has no basis in facts, right? It's pure emotion. But what that Playbook interview does is it makes you really understand his catalog, his body of work, which is just nothing short of extraordinary. I mean, I didn't realize he's the first manager to win, 3 of the three big league titles, England multiple times, Spain and Italy, European titles. I think he's won like 25 different league titles. And, when you're an emotional beast and you hate somebody because he's fucked you like every year, you throw all those facts out of the window. And so the Playbook is a really fantastic reminder. Then it's an insight into his mind, less so than I thought All or Nothing, and more so just about his pure approach to his craft. And the biggest takeaway for me was, people know me as a manager of players, which he's certainly been, right? He's had mercurial players at his disposal. But he says no, he views himself as a manager of teams. And that's what we're really going to need here. This is a heavy dynamic that we are going to have to deal with today on the heels of a lot of really positive news and we're going to have a great leader and a great tactician to get us through it. And over the last couple of weeks, I don't know. I've swung a little over to your side, Tim. But I don't know.
So Sam, let me ask this, because I've asked you it many times. Are you ready to back Jose as our manager?
But I backed Jose the day that he became our manager. I just didn't believe. I didn't necessarily believe in my heart that he was the right guy. I had it in my head that his experience at United proves that he's a has-been and just not up to the managerial task. And really, as I kind of thought about it more, that's pretty ridiculous. I think a lot of the situation at Manchester United, you know, allowed for things to go as badly as they did for him. And I think he's to blame for things, but I don't think he's a has-been.
The one thing that I'm curious about is that in that show, that it really stood out to me also, the notion of like manage the team and not the player, and it's the way they tell that story is fantastic with Ronaldo, and it's great, right? Today, the one thing that I thought was like, okay, Bale has to come on. He has to bring Bale on. There's no question. Like, we would be going crazy if he didn't bring Bale on. Like, Bale, like, he had to do it. But did he manage the team or did he manage the player in that moment? Like, it felt like the team was breaking their necks to try to get Bale a shot on target, to get Bale the ball in the box, whereas we weren't doing that, right? We were playing much more cohesively, albeit not greatly, until Bale came on. So I wonder, and again, it's a Monday morning quarterbacking, but in light of that one line, do you think he managed the team today, or do you think he managed the player?
So I'm dying to answer this because I thought of one thing, and I'm gonna it's kind of shitty. I'm gonna ask you a question by throwing a very quick question back to you. If Eric Lamela was fit today and you're at 3-0, who are you really supposed to bring in? Gareth Bale or Eric Lamela?
Lamela 1,000 times. 1,000 times. This game was dying for Lamela to break up play, to just end every attack. Like, absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, but to your point, he had to bring on Bale there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily like, can any of us say that he was wrong to bring on Bale there? I mean, the idea, he did bring Winks on to try and bring, some midfield defensive support. I want to ask, I'm just trying to go straight after. I'll ask this to you, Vass, and maybe this is, we'll move to wrap up here. Did you think today was just all fitness with Bale, or do you think that we're going to have one luxury player on our team for the rest of the season, and it will be Gareth Bale? Do you think that he'll be able to contribute, particularly defensively, to the extent that other players, without question, will be asked, to perform at high levels?
I think it is an issue of fitness with Gareth Bale, and I think once he is fully fit and firing, he will be an amazing player. The problem we have, I think, is that we're all still drunk on the Gareth Bale that played for us the first time, and he's not that player anymore. He's a different player. So I don't think we should expect to see the magic that we had before and the pace and the speed that we had before. He's going to play differently. So the question is, does that different Gareth Bale fit into Mourinho's current setup? Because if he's going to be coming on, he'll be coming on, or he'll be playing instead of either Lucas, Bergwijn, possibly Son. Unlikely to be playing instead of Harry Kane, I would have thought. So it's whether that upsets the balance or not, and whether we can find a new balance with Bale in the team. And certainly, I'm hopeful that we will. It's just a shame that today, as I mentioned earlier, he just didn't take that one opportunity that fell his way, and he would have been writing headlines had he scored it and made it 4-2. Then there's no way West Ham are getting a third goal, because they would have been deflated and defeated, and the game would have been done.
And what an inflection point that could very well have been for us, right? Something to really just grow. But like you said, that was sort of a headline writing moment. All right, we've got injuries that we need to talk about. And we also have a pretty busy week ahead. So let's. Are we healthy, Timmy?
We got a few injuries looking at the week ahead. Dyer, of course, is out with the hamstring. You also have Lo Celso out with a hamstring. Jose said his is more of a short-term issue. He expects him to be back this next week. So whether it's for Europa League or against Burnley, I would anticipate seeing Lo Celso return. Tanganga's out with a knock. So is Lamela. He's out with a knock. They're not very specific on what exactly the knock is, but those are some two kind of more recent injuries that have come up is Tanganga and Lamela. So keep an eye on them. I think Dyer might miss a little bit more time, but Lo Celso should be coming back. Burnley, they got a few injuries. That's who will play next Monday. And I'll preface this saying we're recording on Sunday, so we haven't seen who Burnley starts for match day 5 because they have a Monday match. So I don't know if any of these players have recovered and they haven't said anything. But the ones to keep an eye on and that have actually already been ruled out for this week is Matthew Lowton. He's out with a knee injury. Jack Cork is out with an ankle injury. He had surgery. And Ben Mee, their captain, he's out with a thigh injury. So those 3 are out this week. Whether they'll recover for our next week, keep an eye on them because they were expected to be back after the international break, all 3 of them. So keep an eye on those 3. You have Goodmunson. He came back from the international break with Iceland with a groin injury. So keep an eye on his status. And Jay Rodriguez, he had an ankle injury, but he's back in training, and he probably should feature this week. So they have a few players with injuries. More of their defenders have injuries. So keep an eye on their status on the week ahead, but those are your injuries for Burnley.
You're on mute, Sam.
We got a couple of fixtures this week, don't we?
You have to do at least once a week, don't you?
What is this? We're playing the LA. Who are the LASKs? Where's Lask, Timmy? Do we know?
Lask, that's the Austrian one. Yeah.
Austria. Okay. Now, what is Lask a town or Laskstown for like an industrialist company that sponsors the team? Do we know anything about Lask? I've never heard of them.
They're the Linzer Athletic Sport Club from the Austrian state capital of Linz. Upper Austria. And that's off the top of my head, definitely not off of Wikipedia at all, by the way.
Do we know anything about? We likely don't know a damn thing about Lask. We should probably talk about like our approach to lineups here. Who do you think will be rested, and who do you think probably stands a greater chance to play?
Yeah, I don't know a damn thing about them, but I would think Harry Kane needs to be rested. You need to rest Harry Kane. That's why you brought in Vinicius. Maybe you put him on the bench because it is a home game for this one, so we're not traveling to Austria. But I think he needs to be rested, and this is the type of match that you rest him in, and this is the type of match that you give minutes to Vinicius. So that's when I see it. I think I would expect seeing Reggie get the rest with Davies coming in. And then maybe some switch up, what are you laughing at, Vast? Did I pronounce it wrong?
No, Reggie. It just makes me laugh. Sorry.
Because I'm not going to pronounce his name.
No.
The way he said it on that video, it's
perfect.
ridiculous. So he's Reggie. He's always Reggie now for me. So I would expect Reggie to get a rest, though. And then maybe the alternating between Doherty and Aurier.
All right. Burnley.
Well, actually, I don't know. I think we can expect to see more changes than we saw prior to the international break because we're now in the group stage. It's not one-off knockout games where Jose is going to start his very strongest 11 because it means an extra 14 million for the club or 15, 16, whatever it was just to make the group stage. Yeah. So I think we'll see some changes, but I don't think we're going to be seeing the Dennis Cirk and the Fabian Malachi Walcott, the Harvey White, the youngsters. I still think we're so deep right now. Dele didn't even make the matchday squad, so I think he'll come in and play for somebody.
All right, so we got Burnley on Monday. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on Burnley other than the fact that we're going to absolutely smash them. There's just we're not having some bullshit result. We're not giving away a win after we're winning. We're winning. We're going to thrash them. We're not going to talk about the match. Shout outs before we close. You got anything?
No real shout outs. Just want to thank Aaron for coming on and joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yes, you're so welcome. And thanks
Something
for
that we've
having
been
me.
wanting to do for a long time.
Yeah, I'm really, really, really grateful for your time and your knowledge and sharing thoughts and views and telling us a little bit more about your podcast. So again, your amazing podcast can just be found anywhere. First time, long time.
Yeah, you got to search first time, long time Aaron Wolfe because I did a dumb thing and I named my podcast the same name as like 15 other podcasts. So first time, long time. Put in Aaron Wolfe in there, or you can go to firsttimelongtime.am and find every episode that way.
All right. Well, man, you were awesome for joining us. Keep on producing amazing content, and we'll be sure to big up you at every opportunity. And look, and we'll reconvene here. We'll convene here in 2021. We'll have a party for celebrating winning the league. All right.
Awesome.
Come on, you Spurs.
Christ.